everyone, this is Chris with another episode of Stories in Cardboard. Welcome back. For those that might be new to the channel, what I like to do here is I kind of like to take a deep dive look into some vintage football cards and kind of uncover some stories of players and teams that might have either been forgotten or people don't really know about. Now, the first card we're going to look at is Howie Ferguson, card number 31 of the Green Bay Packers. He served in the Korean War as a frogman, which was a precursor to the Navy SEALs. He never played a single game of college football and was actually discovered by a Los Angeles Rams scout while playing football in the Navy. He signed briefly with them but never really caught on and was ultimately released and then signed by the Green Bay Packers. Now, before the Packers became this big juggernaut of a football team in the 60s that everyone's kind of familiar with, they really weren't a very good football team and they struggled to draw attendance. And in 1955, the Packers were getting ready to play the Baltimore Colts. And it was this big billing of Howie Ferguson versus the Colts' Alan Amici. Now, Amici was a former Heisman Trophy winner, and these were two of the better fullbacks in the NFL at the time. So this was a pretty hyped up game. Now, I think the attendance was somewhere over 40,000, which at the time was the most that had ever seen a Green Bay Packers football game. The Colts won that game 24-20, so ultimately the Green Bay Packer fans that showed up to support their team went home disappointed. Now, Howie is in the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame. The next card we're going to look at is card number 32, which is Dorn Dibble of the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions had just a great football team during the 50s. They were one of the best teams of that era. You know, you had them, the Rams, the Cleveland Browns, of course, and then maybe later on in the decade, the Baltimore Colts were considered the best teams of that decade. He played defensive end in college, and when the Lions drafted him, they saw potential as a receiver, so they turned him into a receiver, and he tied Doak Walker's rookie touchdown reception record. He missed the 1952 season because of military service, but played in 3 NFL championship games, winning 2 NFL championships with the Detroit Lions. Next card we have is card number 33, which is Ken Cons of the Cleveland Browns. He was drafted in 1951, but didn't play until 1953, again because of military service. A lot of these players had their careers interrupted by serving their country in the military. He was a very important piece on the defense for the Cleveland Browns in the 1950s. And in the 1954 championship game, he forced a fumble and he intercepted 2 Bobby Lane passes, which ultimately helped his team win the NFL championship. It actually avenged 2 previous losses to the Detroit Lions in back-to-back NFL championship games. Next card we have is card number 34 of Dave Mann of the Chicago Cardinals. Again, all of the Cardinals and the Redskins cards are short prints. Mann played for just 3 years for the Cardinals, and he actually played several years after that in the CFL. He had more of a career in the CFL. I think he played 12 years or something like that in the CFL. It's a great classic pose of the high kick leg going up in the air for 50s football. Next up, we have card number 35, which is Rick Caceres of the Chicago Bears. This is a beautiful card with the yellow background and that dark blue Bears uniform. He's got the football in his hand, kind of, in that pose of running there. Caceres tragically lost his father when he was 7 years old to a gang shooting. He went on to have a really great NFL career with the Bears, played for the Washington Redskins for 1 year, and also played 1 year during the expansion year for the Miami Dolphins. In 1956, which of course is the year this card was put out, he led the NFL in rushing, and also in rushing yards, and also led the NFL in rushing touchdowns that year. Now, I really love these cards where players had these significant accomplishments during the year that these cards were produced, I kind of think about what it must have been like to pull this card out of a pack, especially if you were familiar with what was going on in the NFL at that time. And at this time, we started having a little more national football coverage, and the sport was really starting to become popular. So this was probably a really interesting pull for someone, a kid maybe, that pulled this card out, as he was having a fantastic year. And they went on to, the Bears went and played in the NFL championship that year, but they ultimately got beat down by the New York Giants, who were a very good football team that year. He did win a championship in 1963 with the Chicago Bears, though. Some people believe he is a borderline Hall of Famer, and I am one of those people that believe that he should be in the Hall of Fame, because, again, you can't just look at stats for these players that played in the 50s. It was such a different time. They served in the military. They missed a lot of time. They came back and played football. Careers were cut short. Medicine was not as good as it is today, and injuries a lot of time cut these players' careers short. But he was a great, great football player in the 50s and 60s for the Chicago Bears. Now, last card we have is card number 36, Art Donovan of the Baltimore Colts. I love this card. I love the orange background with that dark blue Colts uniform. And the Colts logo in the upper left-hand corner is one of my favorite from the 50s. This is actually Art Donovan's second card. Now, his rookie card was a 1952 Bowman. So this is only his second card, which is kind of interesting. He served 4 years in World War II and was a 26-year-old rookie when he ultimately played his first game for the old Baltimore Colts in 1950. He has the distinction of playing for 3 teams that would go out of business. The old 1950 Colts, the 1951 New York Yanks, and the 1952 Dallas Texans, who were widely considered maybe the worst team in the history of the NFL, all went out of business. And so the beginning of his career was far from wonderful. He had to really stick things out, and he ultimately did win a couple of championships. They won the 1958 NFL championship game, which was considered by many the greatest NFL game ever played, when their team beat the New York Giants in overtime. And then they actually ended up repeating as NFL champions in 1959 as well. He is also the first Baltimore Colt to be named to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So this is a really cool card. Art Donovan is one of those characters of the old NFL. The more you learn about him, the more you really appreciate him. So that's all I have for today. We're probably going to continue to work through this set a little bit there, and we'll do some other kind of breaks and do some different subjects here and there as well. Again, I think I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to look at a pre-war card that I think will be very interesting for some people. So I appreciate you watching. Take care, and we will see you next time.